Third free throw for Jamal, misses it on purpose, rebound swatted out, and there's the horn. Fun game, weird game, but Denver loses to the Detroit Pistons tonight by a final of 109 to 107.
Kaz is right about that. It was a weird game. Disappointing finish, yeah. I think there's still, you had a chance to send it in overtime twice. Jamal both times missed a free throw. He was just off last night, as was Payton Watson. And when those two guys are off with what you're already dealing with, inside that locker room with a whole bunch of guys hurt, that's a result you're going to get. Still 31-16 on the year, but a 2-point loss at home to the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. It's not that you played like super terrible. You don't have a lot of margin for error when you're dealing with what the Nuggets are dealing with right now. And so when Jamal, I was listening to him post-game, he just was like, yeah, if I could hit rim in the first half, maybe things are different, or make a couple of free throws. Do you want to see him knock those down in the pressure-filled moments? Of course. I'll be honest with you, Jamal looked gassed last night, especially at the end of that game. He played 39 minutes. I think it's more of just a compounding factor of how much he's had to do in the absence of a whole bunch of guys this year. He played last year 36 minutes a night. He's getting 35 and a half this year, but he's also doing that with less rest than he's really ever had. And I mean that he's been really healthy this year. The only guy in your starting 5 that's been healthy. And you got near the end of that game, he was really good in the second half, but you could tell it wasn't one of those nights where he was going to be able to pull out his A game. Payton Watson, who's been phenomenal since being sort of thrust into this starting lineup. He was 6 for 20 last night. Between him and Jamal, they were a combined 1 of 12 from 3-point range. It's going to be really difficult to get anything done with how many guys you have out when they're doing that. The fact that, and here's what I love, that felt like a game in which they could have just packed it in and Detroit runs away with it. They had a 10-point lead entering the fourth quarter. It was a larger lead than that leading up to it. And with the vibe of the game, it felt like this is one to where like a whole bunch of backups be like, yeah, whatever, we lost tonight, on to the next one. Weird situation, sitting in Memphis for a couple of days, couldn't get on the plane, got on the plane, waited hours for it to take off because of the ice. Got back into Denver less than 24 hours to tip off. It was a really weird sort of combination of different factors in which it would have made it really hard for you to win. As I have done with many of their losses, because they've been so much better than I expected, I just kind of shrug. Not here to get upset or anything like that, because I don't really see the point. Who am I going to yell at? Oh, Jamal should have made his free throws. Yeah, he should have, but you know what? He's averaged 29 a night since Joker's been out. You have to accept some leeway for some bad games. I think the same way in just a different sort of perspective with the Avs. The Avs have had a couple of stinkers over the last 3-4 weeks. And when you put up a full season of like straight up dominating everybody, I think you're allowed that occasionally. The one thing that was bothersome to me was there was a lot of turnovers last night. Like, that's just self-inflicted stuff that doesn't need to happen. A lot of them actually by Valanciunas. Now, I think Valanciunas is really good in the role that he's supposed to play. You know, like last night, he finishes with 16 points and 16 boards. Those on the surface are great. Turn the ball over a few times. You're asking him in his normal role, which I don't know if that changes when Joker comes back now. Like, if you just want to sort of ease Joker back into the minutes. Shams yesterday said he's a week away from reevaluation or something, but it looks like Joker's on a pretty good track to come back. Just a few too many turnovers. That was it. But again, you're trotting out a lineup that's got Spencer Jones and Jalen Pickett in the starting five. It's not what you're used to working with or should be working with. You're actually kind of used to it now. But when you're playing against the number one seed in the East, like, do I think Detroit's great? No. But they're all right. And if you make mistakes like that, or you don't have the top two guys on the floor for you right now, which is Murray and Watson, having a good night, then it's going to be really tough to win. So, Nuggets lose last night. The press conference yesterday with the Paytons, the law firm. I thought the tone of Sean yesterday was a really, really interesting, and I'll say this, genuine tone, which I'm not used to hearing. You know, he had a couple of moments at the beginning of it where it was kind of like he was doing a little silly back and forth with some reporters, like the typical Sean Payton sort of personality. But I think it was really refreshing to hear him go through it. And this is what they always do. When they have a big press conference like this, where it's like both of them are speaking at a setting, they will wait to news dump an hour after that thing wraps up. And that's exactly what they did yesterday. They announced the firings of 3 different head coaches. And they did that shortly after that press conference wrapped up. Now, I know the immediate go-to here in when you see that Sean Payton fired Joe Lombardi as one of the 3 assistants is that opens the door for Davis Webb to stick around, be on staff, be an OC. But if that's the case, if this is the purpose to doing it, I don't see why you would make this move unless you're giving Davis Webb the play sheet. Davis Webb has the opportunity to he's doing head coach interviews. You don't think he could be an offensive coordinator somewhere where he could actually call the plays? If you really wanted to keep him around, if you really think he's that good, then give him the play sheet. Now, I don't see many scenarios in which Sean Payton drops the ego and hands that over to somebody else. There was some reports yesterday before Joe Brady got the job in Buffalo that Sean Payton was interested in bringing him in. And that would have included potentially giving him play caller status. So if you believe these sort of stories and rumors that are out there, that if Joe Brady was just one of those assistant coach victims of the head coach being fired and everybody was being let go in Buffalo, if you believe that, then maybe he's more willing than we think. But with how hands-on he is with his football team and especially with his offense, I got a hard time seeing it. But if you fire Lombardi to make way for Davis Webb, if the promotion is in name only, I don't know how much more appealing that is if Davis Webb thinks he's due for something bigger. You know, it's the old assistant to the regional manager tag. Like, do you want to be Dwight Schrute?